Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the phone this morning, Sally Turner, State Senator Sally Turner. Good morning, Sally. How are you today?
Good morning, Seth. Doing well. Waiting for our next snowfall and frigid air.
Oh, my gosh. I thought we were going to be out of this for a little while. Apparently not. I just saw, again, Saturday and Sunday, we could see overnight, wind chills in the, minus 25 range. I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah, that sounds nasty. But I will say this, Seth. John and I had to go to Iowa yesterday, and we saw on I-80 at least 50 cars, semis, trucks in the ditch on our way.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Nasty up there, right?
Yeah, made me think about what those people went through to go to their caucus. That would have been wild.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, Sally, I'll tell you what, you were in Springfield this week, and you're kind of wondering why you were in Springfield this week. What was going on?
Yeah, you're right. It was Tuesday through Thursday was what we were set to go in this week. We went in Tuesday at noon was what we were scheduled, and they adjourned 5 minutes later. We did nothing. Same with Wednesday, nothing. And then they canceled on Thursday. I believe they were wanting to discuss the school board lines in the Chicago public schools, but that didn't happen, and they need to get that done fairly soon. So I imagine when we come back in February, that'll be first on the agenda.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Now, when it comes to kind of looking the first of the year for me, Sally, is I'm kind of I've got the radar on for the state of the state and the budget address because we put those out on the air, and it's just a programming thing for me. So I kind of make a note of that's coming up. What do we know about those two things that the governor is going to give us here in the next several weeks?
Well, I will say about the state of the state, being in the super minority, we're last to know when or what time or how any of those, any part of that event takes place. So we don't have any information about that yet. But we speculate what we're going to see, what we're watching that might come down in Springfield in this session. And I assume that the governor will probably talk about some of these things, but this is what we're hearing, that we have a few issues. One is migrant funding, which, we can talk about that in a little bit more length if you'd like to here in a little bit. But legislative staff unions, that was something that the House Democrat staff was pushing. They wanted to unionize. The Invest in Kids Act, that was something that didn't come out and that we really pushed hard to get done. And I'm hopeful that some of these legislators down on the other side of the aisle were presented great cases over the break, and that they'll go ahead and allow that to happen, and we'll see the Invest in Kids Act. Of course, the state budget, that'll be something that we'll talk about. But another thing is that we're hearing rumblings about maybe an abortion amendment, that maybe they might want to put that on the ballot about, these progressive lawmakers still might want to pursue a constitutional amendment for abortion rights in the state. So those are some of the things that we're hearing. We haven't seen anything specific yet.
I see. So a couple of things potentially down the pipe. And as we get into the spring legislative session there, Sally, I mean, you mentioned the continued kind of focus on migrants coming to Chicago and the greater Chicago area. And even, we're kind of hearing some things about central Illinois even here and there, pockets of folks coming into central Illinois. What's your outlook on how the state continues to deal with this?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, how the state continues to deal with it is a nightmare because I don't think we're dealing with it at all. But also the federal government needs to step up and play their part, and mostly their part in this whole issue. But those of us in my district are not seeing any kind of influx of bus drop-offs or anything to that nature. one of the things that we don't have in my 10-county region is that we don't have a lot of public transportation, and that's something that's needed for these folks to get to where they need to go, and maybe if they want to get a job or something of that nature, which we're hopeful for. They don't have that. So we're not seeing much of that in our downstate region. They're mostly seeing it up in the Rockford area, just the collar counties for drop-offs. So my mayors have not contacted me, but I do know that our sheriffs are aware and they're paying attention. And as a sheriff's association, they are on top of it, and they will be able to deal with it in the best way that they know how, if that does occur.
So when it comes to just how that impacts downstate, the portion about those migrants in the Chicago Collar Counties area there, Sally, how does that impact downstate? And because that seems like kind of a Chicago exclusive problem. Speak to the impacts for downstaters.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is the whole funding issue. So if the governor and the Democratic Party decides that they want to fund more of this assistance with the migrants, we're going to see less funding in other areas because, of course, we don't have enough money to do everything magically that they want to do. So that's going to be a huge problem. And right now it looks like it's affecting our developmentally disabled community. From what we're understanding right now is that the Department of Human Services in that developmentally disability area, that division, they have a plan to cut $2.5 million from direct support personnel in their service hours. So that affects almost 10,000 adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our state. So reducing that amount will help them use that money in other areas, which could be migrant funding. And we've had tons of phone calls about this. And I do know this, that both sides of the aisle, we successfully advocated for a $2.5 or $2.50 per hour wage increase for direct support professionals, that went in our 2024 budget. And we did that in a bipartisan manner. So clearly they are not doing what we wanted them to do. The administration is not. So I think the message going back to the administration is we're all saying, both sides of the aisle saying, you can't do this. You can't rob from this community. It's just not right.
So, Sally, again, in looking to how the governor will sell this to lawmakers. I mean, it's not going to be much of a sell because he's got the legislature in his back pocket. So, I guess is this a foregone conclusion in your mind then?
I haven't heard what kind of plan that they have. He's working in conjunction with the city of Chicago somehow to work out something that's going to be able to benefit the city and help them with their crisis. But we have not been privy to what is his idea. I know that a couple of our senators did a press conference earlier this week to discuss things that could be done. And one of the ideas that they had, and they were Collar County senators, and one of the ideas that they had, give these migrants a voucher to go. They may not want to be here. They may have gotten here and said, you know what, this is not for us. We got sold a bad bill. So they might want to go back. So to give them some kind of voucher to go back to the country of their origin or to another area. I mean, there's ideas out there, but we're still waiting to see what the governor comes up with.
I feel like that'd be a bad look. Illinois is a sanctuary state, Sally, and if people come here and they don't want to be here, what does that say about us?
Yeah, great point. Well, once you get here, the promises of the American dream aren't here for you because you came in illegally.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sally, I guess here as we continue on, anything else on this topic before we kind of move along?
Well, I'm sure we could beat it up a lot, but I think we'll see some, from our Hispanic and Black caucuses, they're seeing an influx of people coming into their communities, and they're underserved to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not liking that. And like you had mentioned before, why don't they move them in on the Gold Coast or somewhere else where there's more money and more opportunity for them to be able to live and thrive instead of into some of these poor communities. So
Yeah.
We'll see. I hope to see that we have some kind of better outcome than what we're seeing right now.
Interesting you say that, Sally, about what I have seen and heard is south side of Chicago residents particularly not enthusiastic about migrants, coming into their community where they're already underserved. They've kind of spoken out on this, and it goes back to a point that I made with you a couple of months ago. And I can't remember I think it was the school voucher program that we may touch on here after a little bit. It's great that people get upset about this and they kind of see it for what it is, but it doesn't do any good if they just continue to vote the same way because there's no incentive for their representation to change how they view this topic and how they approach and vote on this topic. If there's not going to be a change of heart in who you send to Springfield or the Chicago City Council or the Cook County Board or whatever the case may be, if you're not going to change that, then this issue is just going to continue to be you can speak out on it all you want, but it's going to continue to be an issue until you change how you vote.
You're exactly right, Seth. We have people call our offices daily expressing their concern about these specific issues. And we already support them and everything that they're talking about.
Right.
Just calling us, that's not going to make a difference. The difference needs to be made in those areas where they don't think like we do, and they're being affected by these issues, and they need to change the way that they vote in order to get these things done differently.
Yeah, well, and see, it's really not even like I don't think it's really they don't think like us because they're coming to the same conclusion on the topic. It's connecting the dots and making this putting the puzzle all together, if you will. That to me, that's where it lies. I think. On topics like the school voucher program, the migrant crisis, those sorts of things, like we all come to the same conclusion, but it's, connecting the dots on how we got to where we're at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, oh no, it does. But if they think that the individual is presently representing them in those areas, and I'm going to say most likely they're of a Democrat origin, that they probably aren't going to vote the way that these people are thinking right now. They need to call that representative or that senator in those collar counties and say, this isn't what we want. You're our elected representative, and this is what we want. We don't want you to vote because that's what your governor is telling you or what your Senate president is telling you. We want you to vote how we want you to vote, and this is what we want, and those changes need to be done.
I'm sorry, Sally, I didn't mean to interject there.
No.
The other thing I think should be made apparent is the conservative position isn't that of anti-immigration. It's anti-illegal immigration, if you will. Like, people need to come to America legally. There's a process to do so, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah, and we welcome that, and that's what our country was founded on. So everyone, I think, really would like that, but we all have some compassion for those that are fleeing countries that they have been disenfranchised in some manner, whether or not they're running because of their drug dealers or something's happening to their children. We all have compassion for that. but there is a way to apply for that status.
Sure. Very good. Sally, I'll tell you what, like you said, we could probably go on and on about that topic for a while. Let's take a break, though, come back with some more. I know you've got some things you're working on for the spring legislative session. We can talk more about that session as well coming up with State Senator Sally Turner on the phone with us here this morning. More to come on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Corn starts a little bit lower. Soybean contracts start a little bit higher today. March corn down 2.5, 439 3/4. May down 2.5, 451 1/4. July down 1 3/4, 460 3/4. March soybeans up 2 1/4, $12.08. May up 1 1/4, $12.19 1/2. July up 1, $12.29 1/4. Soybean meal for March down 120, 357.50. Soybean oil down 4 at 47.66. Wheat contracts start lower. Chicago March down 8, 574 1/2. Kansas City down 6, 588. Minneapolis up 1/2, 680 3/4. This is the RFD Radio Network.
We are celebrating winter here at Baum Chevrolet Buick. This is Scott Baum in Clinton and Farmer City. Start the new year off with a new Chevy Silverado. We have the right Silverado to get your hauling and towing jobs done, like our 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s in gas or diesel with several trim levels, custom, LT, LTZ, or even high country. Celebrate winter today. BaumChevyBuick.com, right from the start.
Warner Hospital and Health Services in Clinton. CEO Paul Scarron reminding you our walk-in clinic inside our family medicine building will treat your flu symptoms without an appointment. Find out more by clicking our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
For the latest in Central Illinois agricultural news, visit IllinoisFarmRadio.com. Get updated information on markets, weather, ag news, local interviews with NAFB farm broadcaster Jared White, and much, much more. All at IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the phone, State Senator Sally Turner with us. Sally, tell me a little bit. I know you mentioned to me before we got started, you're working on some things for the spring legislative session. What do you have? What are you working on?
Yeah, so a lot of the bills that we proposed previously, we had to refile. So some of the ones that I refiled are, of course, there's a penalty increase on fentanyl, some changes to the State Board of Elections on how they deal with grants, outside grants coming into counties. Let's see, election transparency and standardization. I think we might see that one move. And let's see, a couple of things I wanted to mention. I guess one big one was we had an idea that part of it was because of the state of California and the state of Arkansas, and now 24 states have legislation on the idea of people purchasing farm grounds that are not citizens of the United States. And it's not the fact that they're just not citizens. These people would be, they're hostile nations. Mm-hmm. So China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, those nations, and now the Houthis are listed too through the federal government. So those hostile nations should not be able to buy ag land in Illinois. That's one of the bills that I'm working on. Like I said, 24 states have already passed that. And the language that we've used is bipartisan language. California, as you know, is extremely far left, and we're using some of their language as well. So what this does is that, let's just take, for example, in Clinton at our power station, if the Chinese government and that's the Chinese government, could right now buy farm ground all around that area if they wanted to. But that's a risk of national security. And we've seen that happen in other states where they came in and bought farm ground around a Air Force base. We know that threatens national security. Those are some things that, if it's a 51% interest of that hostile nation, they couldn't be able to buy ground that threatens our national security.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we've come up with.
Why just ag land? Like why not commercially zoned property, or why specifically ag land, Sally?
Well, in the city, there's ways that they could do that with municipal laws and changes to their city laws, ordinances, and things, restrictions. This one would be out in the areas, because what we're concerned with is how that's affecting our critical infrastructure. And what we've seen in just the patterns that mostly the Chinese have is that they're buying up this area that's near critical infrastructures. We're not quite sure why, but it threatens our national security, whether it's trying to manipulate the grain market or something to that nature, or manipulating farmland prices that don't allow our local farmers to be able to be active in purchasing that farm ground. Those are the things that we're seeing. Now, could that be expanded on? Absolutely, yes.
Any traction on these, Sally? Any of these that you're putting out there?
Yeah, actually, we've had the Democrat caucuses interested in it. And like I said, I think this is a bipartisan issue. So I think that's something that we're going to see. There's, I'm sure, going to be a lot of tweaks in it. And it has nothing to do with our friends buying ground. You know, the Canadians in the United States, they already own a lot of ground in the northwestern part of our United States. And we know what they use that for with timber and things of that nature. And it helps us as agribusiness. But in our area, we need to make sure that we protect our good black dirt. And some of these areas, they're coming in and buying giant swaths of ground for solar farms. Sometimes they could be a Chinese company. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we need to protect ourselves and make sure that those foreign entities aren't driving up our prices.
Sure. Sally, I hate to do this to you. I have to let you go. Thanks for making time for us. As always, State Senator Sally Turner on the phone with us. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin insurance agent in Clinton.